and welcome to my GAMMANS art channel. This week I am going to do a very similar thing to last week and show you a time-lapse video of me painting a painting start to finish. So I'm going to speed it up because obviously it takes a long time, but you guys can see my techniques and the way I've done the sunset and close-ups on things and the splatter effect and all the different things I will talk you through at the same time. So if you did want to completely steal my painting ideas, you totally could, because I'm taking you from start to finish. So I really hope you guys enjoy the video, and as usual, if you've got any questions that you would like to send me, then please do, and I will answer them, and please do like and subscribe, and most importantly, I really hope you enjoy it. So I've started off as I normally do with a painted plain canvas. I paint it in acrylic, so the top half is like a really light turquoise colour, like a Tiffany colour, and then the bottom half is the purple. And what I'm doing now, I've drawn out the outline of the hills, and I've drawn out the outline of the clouds, and I'm just kind of going over the backdrop with that really kind of deep purple colour in order to make my background colour. So the Tiffany blue I described earlier is important because that's the colour of the clouds before they get to the purple colour. So I'm using a very similar colour, which is why it looks like I'm not really painting anything. I'm using the same colour as that blue in oil so that I can smudge it into the background, so it looks like the clouds are merging into each other. And it's really important when you are working out your colour scheme for a painting to just kind of check that when you do that mergy cloud thing that I'm doing now with the oil paint, that when it merges into the background colour, it's not going to create like a horrible sludgy brown or something. So I've chosen two colours that work quite well together, which are kind of that dark purple and that Tiffany blue. I'm now working on the sunset area and kind of building this up with really bright oranges and pinks, and I want it to be really bright this time, so I'm really going for it with the colour, just kind of spreading that along the horizon line so that it peaks over the top of the mountains. So you can see that I'm now adding a sort of darker purpley colour to the edges of the sunset area, and that's mainly to kind of blend it with the background, and also just to really emphasise the light in the centre of the painting. The way to do that is to make sure the edges look a little bit darker, so the colour the brightness of the colour works its way outwards from the centre of the painting. So I'm now building up the first layer of pinky cloud, merging it with that turquoisey blue colour, and again it's really important that these colours are going to look okay when you blend them together. I'm using my hands a lot with this just because the softness and the texture of the fingers are really good as opposed to paintbrushes at this stage, because it means you can really get that soft blend as opposed to more of a kind of harsh brushwork technique. And I'm really building up that orangey brightness. My hands are so important at this stage to really get that blended cloud effect. I'm now using my palette knife to really create that bright white light that's in the centre of the painting that's going to really be the kind of focal point, and that's the sunset area. So I've used a really light yellow. It's Nepal's yellow with that white that I always go on about, the oil fast dry, and I've blended them together. It's really pale, because the lighter the better really at this stage, and as it gets further and further towards the sunset, you're going to see that I make it lighter and lighter until it almost looks glaring white, and that's just to create the effect of light really. So I'm smoothing it out with the palette knife and also my fingers, so it really blends nicely together. I always tend to do the sky first in these paintings just because that's the main concept of the painting, so it's really important to get that right and get those colours right before I can start working on the landscape. Now you can see what I'm really doing here with the rocks and the land in this painting is almost reflecting the colours from the sky in it. So I'm using quite a warm brown because the sky is obviously, the clouds are pinky and orangey and warm, so I've used a warm red towards the centre where the sunset's going to be, and I've worked my way out with almost like a darker purple colour. And now moving down to the water, I've got that really light Tiffany blue again, and that is to bring the painting together so that I'm reflecting the brightness of the clouds in the brightness of the water. And also you'll see why later when I create the setting around the reflections, you'll see that I make it very darker so that that water really stands out. I'm now kind of building up the second half of the rocks, and I've made them quite uneven. As you can see, one side kind of falls quite flat and the other side is a little bit more imposing, and I've really done that just for compositional reasons, and because you'll see again later I've balanced that out with the bottom left hand corner is very, very eye-catching, and there's a lot going on. It's very busy, and that is going to reflect opposite to the right hand side of the mountains. So that kind of the, there's a lot going on that side of the painting, and there's a lot going on the other side of the painting, and that's just for balance reasons really, and composition. You can see I'm now layering up the sides of the painting with those sort of shadows of the rocks and those lines which are going to help draw the eye to the centre of the painting where the sunset is, as that is the main focal point. So I'm using quite a thick brush for this bit, and again hands as well, just a smudge. And it's quite dark this side as well, and it will be dark on the other side too. And again, that's just to highlight that the light is really, really in the centre, and towards the outskirts of the painting it's going to be a lot darker, as it kind of looks like as a sunset would. Everything sort of falls into darkness and the light is really, really important there. I used that white paint for the centre reflection. As you can see, really, really important that these colours I'm using in the reflections mirror the colours in the sky, so that it looks like a reflection, but also just because that is what brings the painting together and makes it look like one whole entity rather than two halves of a painting. I'm using my hands a lot in this section as well, and also a much thicker brush, just because I want to get those really broad, smooth strokes so it looks like water. As I get to the outskirts of the painting, the colour's becoming a little bit more pink, and as I get further down with the reflections, it's also becoming deeper. And again, that's to make sure that the central pool of light stands out, and also just, again, mirroring the colours of the sky, really. I'm using quite a warm browny yellow for this bit too, and that is again to make sure that I'm dragging the colours from the sky, which are quite warm yellow fiery colours, into the bottom half of the painting where there's quite an organic foliage sort of feels. It's supposed to look kind of a bit marshy, kind of like the setting you would maybe find at the beach, or in a kind of a cove somewhere. And so that I can create those organic shapes, I'm using browns and things, but because I don't want them to just look detached from the painting, I'm really warming them up. So I've used warm purples and warm browns, and you can see there I've just kind of added a sort of pinky colour, which again is reflected in the sunset. And I'm also doing that drip technique I told you guys about, where I water down the oil paint with white spirit and just let it drip, and it is so much fun to do. So you can see I'm doing it with blue there as well, and so that blue I'm using is cerulean blue, and that is also the blue that I have used for the clouds to get that Tiffany colour. So as you can see, I'm really sticking to a palette so that the painting works together as a whole, and that's really, really important. This area is probably the darkest area of the piece, and the reason I've done that is because it really helps to balance out the painting, because there's quite a lot of light emanating from the top left hand side, so it's really, really important to get the darkness then mirrored in the bottom right hand corner. You can tell I'm talking a lot about mirroring and reflections, and that is because that is really what a composition is. It's just about making it look right when you look at it to the eye. So we, without realizing, when we look at a picture or a painting, we're sort of looking at it and thinking, oh, why does that look good? Why does that appeal to me? And it's a lot of it is just about balance and composition. So that's why I keep referring back to that. You can see I'm using a really warm green. I've used the same yellow in that green that I have in the sunset. So it's Nepal's yellow, and I have mixed it with a really leafy green so that it kind of looks really vibrant and bright against the sunset. And what I tried to do here is use quite light tones so that it looks like the sunset is almost bouncing off that grass, and that sort of helps to again bring the painting together, and so that your eye isn't just looking at the one focal point, but it carries it down to the left hand corner and says, oh, okay, well, that's the foliage at the bottom and the light's kind of catching it there, and it basically draws your eye around the painting so that you're looking at it as a whole rather than just one specific thing. This is probably one of the funnest parts of the painting for me, because I get to really build up a thick colour here, because it's obviously the foreground. It works a lot better if you use a really thick texture of paint and really kind of use the impasto technique and build it up. And it's also probably where I get to be most free with the painting, because it's meant to look like messy grass, so it doesn't have to be so thoughtful, this bit. I mean, I'm still kind of really thinking about what I'm doing, but it can be a little bit more free, a little bit more fun. And you'll see in a second that, there we go, the bright yellow colour I've used, again Nepal's yellow, and I've really highlighted that area of the grass and the shrubbery, so it looks like the light has caught that area and again brings the painting together. This central lower part of the painting is where I'm joining the left and the right hand side, so you are going to see me smudge it together in a second, but I'm just getting darker and darker in my tones because I really want it to look as if the further away from the light you get, the more kind of swamp-like and dark it's becoming. And those techniques are going to help me create depth in the picture as well. So it's not just about the tones and the colours, and it's just about creating a 3D effect as well. So you can see now I've smudged the bottom section together so it works more as a whole. I mean, there are still areas where I've used thicker paint, and that's on purpose to create texture. Now I'm going back to the reflection in the picture, and this bit's so important. It needs to be as light and as bright as possible, really, so it looks like when you see it, it's a bright shining light and you know, a sunset. So I'm using the palette knife here to build up the white colour and then smudging it with my fingers so it still looks like a reflection. And this bit here is the most crucial bit, and it's where I get a little bit of paint on my palette knife, and there you go, I just dab it right in the centre, so that is what is going to really be the main element of the painting. That's the sun, that's the sunset, and I've used my hands there to drag the colour down, so there is more of a vertical accent on that reflection, and again that's going to create more of a compositional element and lead the eye around the painting and give it a bit of more direction. And because obviously the painting is quite horizontally set, so the landscape is horizontal and a lot of the reflections are, a lot of the lines in it are really horizontal, that vertical line coming down, that reflection, is going to be really important. These last bits are just sort of adjustments I'm making where I'm highlighting certain areas and low lighting other areas to really give a sense of 3D and texture and interest in the painting. And I'm also going to use my palette knife, the edge of it, to create, as you can see now, I'm using it to make it look like there are little things happening on the horizon, the boats and you know, kind of movement happening in that area, maybe like a building or a hint of something going on in the distance. And I'm just using the edge of my knife, different colours that I've used in the paintings. I'm sticking to that palette, but I'm just sort of highlighting maybe the sails on the boats, or just so it looks like there's more going on. And that detail is so important in the background, because that is going to sort of forgive the rest of the painting being quite simple, because there is that detail in the background. You also see me use the blowing technique with my paintbrush to create that splattery light effect as well, and this is part where I'm just kind of making adjustments so that it looks good as a whole. But you can see there I've added a little bit of a more horizontal cloud in the corner just to kind of bring it together, and there you go, that is the finished painting. So there you go. Please do not forget to like and subscribe, and also ask me any questions that you have and I would love to answer them. Thanks so much for watching.